Hello everybody, my name is Karma from Wrecked the Hole. I've awoken from my slumber again, because I sense powerful retardation in the air. It did not take me long to find out what the source was. Games Workshop has finally done it. They have made female Custodes canon, and I fully, with every fiber of my being, endorse it and support it.
You what?
If you think you know where this is going, I promise you do not. Before I continue, let me set the record straight. I hate Games Workshop with a passion, and I can't wait for the day that it burns to the ground. They have been a corrosive, evil company long before the woke BS came to be, and they will continue to be long after the woke BS dies, assuming it ever does.
Forgive the switch to text-to-speech. It seems the Plague Father has given me a gift that has concentrated in my throat. No big deal, all I do is make commentary videos, so it's not like I needed it anyway. As I was saying, Games Workshop making female Custodes is good in the long run for a few reasons. First, many people, such as myself, have skin in the game in more ways than one. There are many smaller creators that have, or, like myself, are making their own tabletop wargame with lore. The more Games Workshop actively dilutes and worsens their settings, the more former fans will be likely to flock to new creators, giving them a chance within the tabletop wargaming space. Games Workshop is, for all its faults, the biggest force in wargaming, second to the customers. They are an 800-pound gorilla with a minigun, and can use that influence to make lucrative deals like with Creative Assembly, and more recently with Amazon. On the flip side of their power, they can use their near bottomless, though that probably changed after their stocks fell from the female Custodes models, legal budget to sue any creator that makes a model that vaguely looks like one of their own. Never mind the fact that all their models are Frankenstein's monsters of various fantasy and sci-fi tropes, and that Warhammer Fantasy Battles pulled so much from the Elric saga at one point that they nearly got sued for it. There was even a time where Games Workshop tried to claim that elves and orcs were an original GW idea, and wanted to sue people for using either of them, and it went nowhere because elves are public domain as they are folklore creatures, and orcs, as far as I've been able to find, are a Tolkien original fantasy monster. I'm going to put the comments of somebody who claims to be a lawyer on screen that were posted below Gamak's second video on Games Workshop suing him for unfair competition. Yes, you heard that right, unfair competition. The TLDR version is that GW has been making false IP-based lawsuits for a long time, and if anybody took them to court over it, they would get the legal equivalent of being shot at point blank with a Space Marine plasma rifle. There is only one reason that it hasn't happened yet.
Money.
Despite the nosediving stocks, Games Workshop still has the budget to crush any small creator they see as competition. To paraphrase what Fleek said in his video about Nintendo's Palworld patent lawsuit, they don't have to win, they just need their opponents to lose. Games Workshop, at least for now, can literally afford to keep going forever, whereas even if a smaller creator is guaranteed to win, they will likely go broke somewhere near the 3/4 mark, if not sooner. If Games Workshop fuels their own destruction with female Custodes, female Space Marines, and so on, and shuts down, then the odds that creators wake up one day to see they have a false patent infringement lawsuit at the very least is severely reduced. Second, Games Workshop imploding because of woke diversity would make for an excellent argument against wokeness and leftism itself. Star Wars has been mutilated by wokeness, and the string of box office bombs and reviews prove it. Sure, leftists will find a laundry list of excuses assuming they don't default to the whole world is full of bigots routine, but they're not who needs convincing, it's the normies that do. We are a 1% fighting against another 1%, and the normies are the 98% that essentially decide which side wins. The far left can reframe the communism hasn't really been tried argument as much as they want. The more companies, especially big ones like Games Workshop, embrace wokeness and fail, the more difficult it will be for them to argue their position to the normies. Third, gatekeeping doesn't work. Gatekeeping only works in small communities, like friend groups. With the vastness of the internet and the ease of creating a new space on Reddit, Discord, or some other website, it's easier than ever to find communities that you largely agree with, be they a part of a fandom, or just hold an interest in a certain topic. At first, this made it easy for folks on our side of the culture war to make their own communities. However, the same advantage was given to the arch-enemy. Over time, one by one, ally communities were banned under claims of harassment and bigotry, whether they were true or not, with the majority of cases being bullshit. The arch-enemy had the upper hand in most online spaces, and only recently with Elon Musk's takeover of Twitter is there a place where we can freely speak, though it's not designed for building communities like Discord or Reddit, yet. The whole time, gatekeeping did absolutely nothing to stop the destruction of ally servers, nor did it stop Elon from buying Twitter. You can make whatever rules for a community you wish, but there are consequences for false flags. With gatekeeping there is a risk that people who are elitists, overzealous, suffer from Reddit mod syndrome, or some mix of all three, can create an echo chamber. This means that, combined with the standard of gatekeeping, join the hobby, come inside, change the hobby, stay outside, there is very little room for critique of the actual topic that's being gatekept. To take an old example of something that needed criticism and change, there used to be a certain faction in the second edition of Warhammer Fantasy Battles. Fans of Warhammer who grew up in the 80s might know where I'm going with this. These are the Pygmies, the faction based on African tribesmen. If you're just listening to the video, stop what you're doing and look at the screen, because my words won't do these things justice. The Pygmies lasted from 1984 to 1988, before Games Workshop realized just how crazy racist the faction was. They don't have an army anymore, and are only mentioned in the lore as the tribes of Lustria. I actually would like to see a faction in Warhammer Fantasy based on African tribes and folklore, though given GW's current allegiance, I don't trust them not to turn it into a lecture on white's evil they do slavery. It's similar to why I don't trust them to bring back the Fimir, the faction of matriarchal monsters. To take a less extreme example, the lore in Warhammer 40k First Edition was completely batshit crazy. It was obviously just Games Workshop throwing every sci-fi trope and faction at the wall and seeing what stuck. The characters Elian Nastaz and Oberyn Sherlock Glacio were the apotheosis of this phase in my eyes. By 3rd edition, Warhammer 40k's lore was less psychotic and more in line with the grimdark they were aiming for. To reiterate, the standard of gatekeeping is join the hobby, come inside, change the hobby, stay outside. By those standards, anybody who called out Games Workshop for making the Pygmies, or for offering genuine criticism for Warhammer 40k First Edition should have been thrown out on their asses. Hell, Arch Warhammer, who is one of the biggest champions of gatekeeping, should have been thrown out for criticizing the butt-ugly designs for the new Chaos Dwarves, and Chaos Dwarves were his gateway drug into Warhammer lore. The danger in false flags isn't just that you run into retarded situations like kicking out actual fans, the danger is what the arch-enemy can do with such scenarios. On the one hand, they can spin them as propaganda against us, claiming that we're the oppressive force that they are, and the 98% hates injustice so they'll likely be swayed at the wrongly gate-kept part. On the other hand, the arch-enemy can use those incidents to recruit people to their ranks, giving false promises of freedom and diversity of opinion, and selling anarchy to the normies is usually easier than selling structure and rules to them. Now, I don't hate Arch, I've been watching his videos for a few years, and don't know anything about him personally. All I know is that when the real-life fake wizard presented his argument against gatekeeping, albeit sloppily, Arch was a dick in his reaction video. Arch then went on to fake wizard's show and had a cordial discussion about gatekeeping and its use and effectiveness. There was also the time Arch made a video saying we should give Kingdom Come, Deliverance 2 a chance, and then made a response video after the video got a higher dislike ratio than normal, and genuinely tried to understand his viewers' perspectives. That puts him well above 99% of other content creators. However, that doesn't mean he's immune to having bad takes, and holy shit did he recently have a bad take. To give a brief timeline, Games Workshop presented the female Custodes, and Arch makes a video rightfully pissed off. He then makes a second video talking about the plastic crack argument. This is where I started to diverge with Arch because, while I agree there needs to be substance behind the plastic crack, I think he missed a crucial detail. Games Workshop has essentially been banking on selling plastic crack to people who see the pretty models, see that Games Workshop switches editions like women switch pairs of shoes, and want to get it out of FOMO. That's at least what I think their strategy to push through and survive after the mass exodus of fans that's coming for them is, based on everything I've seen. The part where I started tearing my hair out is with his third video, specifically the part where he attacks other Warhammer creators for not being as loud as him. His take on what the other Warhammer creators should have done is fucking retarded for two reasons. First, some tried to do so to the best of their ability under GW's contract, and two, if they did go off like Arch did, it would not end well for them. I don't know Arch's specific dealings with Games Workshop, only at one point he got a deal like the other Warhammer creators, and refused it. I don't know if it was his rage wiping his memory, or if he just didn't care, but I know he knows what would have happened to them. Games Workshop would have cut ties with them, sued them for breach of contract, then retroactively sued them for copyright and patent infringement, and thrown every other lawsuit they could at them, and then copyright strike their channels off of YouTube. Arch essentially called for all Warhammer creators to set themselves on fire with the promise that the pagan gods of gatekeeping will protect them from what comes. It's all the worst parts of his video calling out the Warhammer creators he made about a month ago on IMAX, and it pisses me off because I know he's smarter than that. The truth is that the IP holders are the captains of the ship. If Games Workshop says there's female Custodes now, then there's no amount of gatekeeping that will stop it. The only way to get through to the corpos is to hit them where it hurts, their wallets. Boycotting is what gets the suits' attention, as it's much easier to survive internet backlash than it is to survive less income and the possibility of bankruptcy. Now, I don't think Games Workshop is going to change course. I think they're going to double, triple, quintuple, decuple down ad infinitum until Warhammer 40k and fantasy are dead. This leads me to my final reason why I love the female Custodes. As I've stated before, the female Custodes are the first step to the snowball of Games Workshop imploding. When that inevitably happens, this will present two golden opportunities. The first is that with Games Workshop thoroughly knocked off their throne in the cultural space, somebody else will inevitably take their place. It may be somebody who already has a playable game, or it could be Arch, as he says his own wargame project is close to having things to show. Personally, I hope it's Arch who takes the Iron Throne, as from the little he's shown us, his project seems awesome, and it will be the biggest fuck you to the arch enemy that I can think of, and if he doesn't take it, then somebody else will, and I'd prefer it be him, or at the very least somebody with the understanding and respect for the wargaming space that he has. The second opportunity is that I, Arch, and people in the same camp as us will be able to show off what Warhammer Fantasy and 40k was like before Games Workshop died. I know where I'm planting my flag. I've got a copy of the 5th edition of Warhammer 40k, and the 4th edition Necron book. It will become the ultimate democratization of ideas on which version of Warhammer is the best, and I guarantee you the archenemy's version will lose the fastest, as it was part of what made Games Workshop die in the first place. It will almost be like what's happened to Mordheim, but on steroids. However, in order for those opportunities to present themselves, Games Workshop needs to shut down. The longer we keep interrupting our enemies when they make mistakes, the longer it will be. Arch told people what to say to those who embrace female Custodes.
There is no call for civil discourse or a respectable debate because we've already had it. Whenever the request is even aired, merely laugh in their face and repeat the following. I am right. You are wrong.
Here is what you say to those people saying that, shut up, remember Napoleon. With that, if you enjoyed the video, leave a dislike. My name is Karma, and I'm gonna go pop NyQuil like Tic Tacs, and return to my slumber.